Zyger here, welcome back to another video, and today's video is a Unity tutorial on a grow and shrink function. I use this function on one of my Unity games, which you can see on the screen right now, and there will be a link in the description, but basically it involves the player shrinking and growing when colliding with food. This tutorial will also include a project file, and this can be found in the description below, and it can also be used for 2D and 3D, so it's versatile for any project. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is a Unity project, and I've gone ahead and created this, but once again, this function is versatile for any type of project, so go ahead and add it to your game if you wish. Now the first thing I went ahead and created is a player and a food. Now the player is going to be the object that actually grows, and the food is going to be the thing that allows the player to grow. So the first thing you're going to need to do is click on your player, and you're going to need to add a collider. Now ensure that this collider is a 3D collider and not a 2D collider. For those who don't know what it is, basically you can go ahead and click here and press collider. Now anything that has a 2D won't work, but anything with a no 2D will work. Now this is really important because we want that actual function to work. Then on the food, you're going to do the same thing, add a collider, and for this you're going to add a rigid body. Now in my case, I don't use gravity, however you can go ahead and tick this if you want. The next thing you need to do is go ahead and add a script. So I'm going to call my script eat, but you can call it whatever you want. Go ahead and create it and open it up. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and add two floats. One called increase, one called decrease. Now these are both public, so we can go ahead and access them whenever we need to. Now you can make them private, however that does complicate few things later on. Now the next thing you need to do is go ahead and actually detect some sort of collisions. So for those who are new to Unity, you can basically use an on trigger enter. Now I've gone ahead and made one right here. Now this is very simple, you just put void on trigger enter bracket collider space other bracket. Now what this means, collider, this is the collider that we're using on the objects. Now if you did use a 2D collider, this won't work. This is why this is really important. Now even if you put 2D after it, because you can go ahead and put 2D if you use a 2D collider, it still doesn't work with the vector-free scaling that we're going to be doing later on. Now the other, you can go ahead and call this whatever you want. I call it other because it's any other object, and it makes it easier later on for understanding things. Now in here, we're going to go ahead and do all the math stuff and all of the scripts for actually increasing the size of it. Now, some of you thought this was really complicated when you were messaging me, however, it's very simple. It's genuinely just one line of code, and that's about it. Oh, I forgot to mention, we actually need to go ahead and detect what player we're colliding with, because if you don't add an if statement in here, basically what's going to happen is you're going to grow on collision with anything. So I've gone ahead and created this if statement right here that checks if the game object tag equals food, then we're going to go ahead and do the script. Now this is very simple, you just need an if statement, some brackets, other, which is the thing that we used here. So if you wrote anything else than other, go ahead and make sure it's there. .gameObject.tag equals food. Now, my tag is going to be food, however, if you're colliding with like a wall, you can go ahead and change this to a wall or whatever you want. Now, I'm going to get into how to make the tag work in a moment. We're going to do that after we finish the script. Now, in this if statement, this is where we're going to be adding the maths. Now we're saying maths, but it's genuinely very easy. It's basically some transforming of vectors. So bam, here is the line of code you're going to need, and this is literally it. Now I'm going to explain this really quickly for those who want to understand, and I really suggest that you do understand this and you do listen to this bit, because you can then go ahead and reuse this whenever you need to in certain different situations. So the first thing we do is we do the transform. Now the transform is the thing that we kind of attach to the game object, and this allows us to see the sort of scale of the object. Now local scale sounds what it is just the scale of the object. We basically get the transform local scale, so we grab the scale of the player and we go ahead and add equal, which means that we are now going to add to this a new vector. Now a vector free is basically a type of different kind of angles. For our case, we've got the X, the Y, and the Z. So you can go ahead, if I minimize this, you can go ahead and see when you click on the player, you have the scale here where you have the X, Y, the Z. That's basically a vector free. Now the reason we needed it to be a collider is because vector free doesn't work on any other type of collider. So if you're using this on a 2D collider, it's not going to work as well. There is a way to make it work, however it's a little bit too complicated for this tutorial. Then the next thing you're going to do is write increase here. Now this is the float that we created at the start of the script, and this is going to be the value that we increase by. Another thing I'm going to go ahead and add is I want to basically destroy the object after colliding with it. So I have a simple destroy bracket other.gameObject. Now other once again is taken from this line over here. Now we can go ahead and remove these two lines here, save the script, and go ahead and minimize and go back into the game. Now, very simply, go ahead and refresh your player or wait around a little bit, and once again you will see two values appear here, an increase and a decrease. So I'm going to go ahead and set the increase to a 0.5, but you once again can change this to whatever you want. In my game I set it to 0.1, but for the sake of the video I want you to see a difference. So right now I can move around my player because of the move script. Now if I collide with the object, as you can see, nothing happens yet. And you might wonder, why does nothing happen? Well, we still need a tag, because currently this will only happen if the item has a tag. So you're going to go ahead and click on the tag and press add tag, add this, and in my case I'm calling it food, but you can call it whatever you want, and in terms of what it has to be, it doesn't matter, but make sure it matches on the same on the script. Now we can go ahead and press on tag and give it the food tag. Now if we go ahead and press play, we can go ahead and collide with the object, and we have grown, as you can see. It was a slight grow, however you can go ahead and decrease it or increase it however you want. Now in terms of the decrease, it's very simple. It's basically going to be the same code and the same line of code. We're just going to change a few values here and there. Now remember, I made you keep the void update. Basically what I'm going to do is on left click I'm going to have the size decrease. Now the reason we're going to put this in the update is so that it happens at every point in the game, because we want this to be, we want the player to be able to left click whenever. So the first thing we need to do is actually check if an input has been made. Now this can be done with a simple line like such. It's basically an if statement checking if an input of the mouse button down left click has happened. Now basically, how does this work, some of you may ask? Well basically, if statement input get mouse button, let's check if an input has been made, and the 0 is left click. Now you can go ahead and change the 0 to a 1, and it will be right click, and then 3 or whatnot, and this is basically just Unity's input system. You can go ahead and read up on it. I can leave links to it in the description if you wish. And basically now all we do is copy the same line of code as we did on here, but instead of having increase we have decrease. This works in the same exact way. We basically change the size of the object, but this time we decrease it. Now you could go ahead and set this to a minus and use the same as the increase, but we're going to leave it as so, not to complicate things. We can now go ahead and close the script because we are officially done. The last thing we need to do is set the decrease. Now make sure this is a minus number, otherwise you won't actually be decreasing anything. So I'm going to set mine to minus 0.3. Now, let's go ahead and press play and check this out. So if I collide with the object, you have seen that I've grown, and now if I left click, you can see that I have decreased, which is awesome. Now, I would preferably change these values to the same number, and you can go ahead and experiment with this function, but this is how simple it is. It's genuinely just a few lines of code, and now you have a grown shrink function. Now, I did this to make a sort of Algario game, which once again, there'll be links to it in the description below. Anyway guys, thank you so much for the recent support. As usual, make sure to leave a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're new, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye!